Hello and welcome to another Goblin TV tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to be painting Adeptus Custodes from start to finish. In this tutorial I will be using an airbrush, but you can use a regular brush to paint with all the paints that I actually mention in this tutorial. Okay, as always these videos do get rather long, so go get comfortable, grab yourselves a nice drink and we'll get started with the tutorial. First of all, I'll prime the miniature using Stynel Res primer by Badger. It's a black primer and you'll find that in most cases black is the best primer base to lay down on your miniature for metallics. I'm spraying here at about 20 psi and about 3 to 4 inches away from the miniature, and I'm just getting a nice even smooth but thin coat on the miniature. Now we're going to lay down our base layer and we're going to be using Vallejo's Metal Colour Copper. I have to emphasise how wonderful these metal colours from Vallejo are. They spray absolutely effortlessly on the miniature and they're really thin and don't clog your airbrush up like most airbrush metallics. Again, I'm actually spraying the metallic colour here about between 15 and 20 psi, and again working about 3 to 4 inches away from the miniature, and we're just getting a nice even smooth coverage throughout the whole of the miniature. Now we're going to be using Vallejo Metal Colour Gold. We're going to be spraying at about a 45-degree angle from the very top of the miniature towards the bottom. So what that'll do, it'll leave all the copper underneath the miniature and create a natural type of shading. Here I'm showing you that I use Rosemary & Co.'s Kolinsky Sable brush, and it's a size 3 and also it's from the Series 22 line. I highly recommend these brushes, they're so good and they last a really long time. Here you can see that I'm coming in with some Vallejo Metal Colour Gunmetal Grey, and I'm just painting all of the areas that are due to be painted in a silver metallic colour. Now we're going to create some really nice deep shading on the miniature using Vallejo's Dipping Wash Sepia Colour. And this is a very large pot and it's roughly about 200 mil, and it will last you for a whole army's worth of washing. Now what I'm doing here is I'm washing all of the silver metallics very heavily with this sepia wash, and I'm washing all the areas that I think there'll be natural shading on the miniature, and it really does help the miniature come to life. Now we're going to create some dry brushing on the miniature using Games Workshop's small dry brush. It's important to note that when you actually are using the dry brushing technique that you have to remove almost all of the paint on some paper towel until you literally see no paint come off the brush. Then what we're going to do is lightly brush backwards and forwards on the miniature to catch all the raised surface detail area of the miniature. Using Vallejo silver colour from the Game Air line, we're really going to make the miniature pop and come alive with this dry brushing. Now we're going to use Games Workshop's contrast paint Gore Grunter Fur. We're going to be painting the Gore Grunter Fur on all of the gauntlets on the miniature and other little areas of interest that are going to be painted in a leather colour. Games Workshop's contrast paint Blood Angels Red is going to be painted onto the cloaks of the Custodes. The bases of the Custodes are from a great company called Dark Art Miniatures, and we're going to be painting them firstly using Vallejo Game Air Sombre Grey, and as you can see I'm just laying down the sombre grey onto the miniature with the size 3 brush here, and you can see how effortless it is using a larger brush as opposed to a really small brush. Now we're going to do a technique called hard edge highlighting, and what we're going to do is just use the very extreme edge of the brush with Games Workshop's Fire Dragon Bright Orange, and we're just going to catch all of those creases in the folds and just really make that cloak pop. Now we're going to wash the base that was previously painted in Vallejo Game Air Sombre Grey with Games Workshop's Agrax Earthshade. I water down the Agrax Earthshade 1:1 with water, just so it doesn't leave too much staining behind on the top surface of the base. Here I'm dry brushing using Vallejo's Game Air Wolf Grey, and as you can see I'm just lightly brushing backwards and forwards onto the base, and it's picking up all of that extreme surface detail, especially on the lettering that looks really cool on those dark art miniature bases. Now we're going to be using VMS pigments, and we're going to be applying it to some areas of the base. The reason that we are adding the pigments is that it'll leave a real nice earthly texture, and it'll look really realistic, and they're very simple to apply. The most important thing to note with pigments is you need to seal them in with a varnish. If you don't seal them in, then they'll be active on the surface, what that means is that when you touch the miniature's base with the pigments on, you'll get the pigments all over your fingers, which you don't really want to do. So here I'm using VMS Supplies Ultra HD, or HD I should say, varnish, it's not a television, and we're going to be painting it all over the miniature, and especially on the pigment areas of the base. And here you can see what the details of the miniatures look like all painted. I want to thank you all for sticking around and watching the entirety of this video, and if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button, share it amongst friends, and I'd really appreciate it. Lastly, I want to say sorry for the background snoring. It's my pugs having a midday snooze. I hope it's not been too off-putting, and thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next Goblin TV video.